Cullen thought the house would save his marriage. That was his first mistake. The house stood at the end of a quiet street in Maine, with white walls, a narrow porch, and 2 old maple trees in the front yard. It was not a mansion. It was not rich. But to Cullen, it felt like proof that his life had finally become real. He had worked for 12 years to buy it. Night shifts, factory jobs, cold mornings when his hands hurt so badly he could barely hold coffee. He had skipped vacations, worn the same boots until the soles split, and eaten cheap dinners alone in his truck while other men went home to families. When he signed the papers, the real estate agent smiled. "Congratulations, Cullen. It's yours." Cullen looked at his wife, Brielle. She hugged him, but her eyes were not on him. They were on the house. At first, he thought it was happiness. Later, he understood it was hunger. Brielle came from a family people respected. Her mother, Maris, ran a private finance office. Her sister, Tinsley, was a young attorney who spoke like every sentence was a court order. At dinners, they laughed softly at Cullen's clothes, his job, his old truck. "Hi everyone, I'm Eugene. A friend told me this story." Even the way he pronounced expensive words. Brielle always said the same thing. "Don't be sensitive. They're just joking." But jokes are different when everyone laughs except you. At Maris's anniversary party, in front of 30 guests, Cullen gave a short toast. He had practiced it all day in the garage because he wanted Brielle to be proud. He barely finished the first sentence before Tinsley smiled and said, "That was brave. Public speaking is hard when you don't read much." The room laughed. Brielle looked down at her glass. Cullen stood there with his hand shaking around the microphone. That night, he slept on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. 3 weeks later, Brielle placed papers on the kitchen table. "They're just protection documents," she said. "My sister prepared them." Cullen looked at the pages. Power of attorney, property transfer, emergency asset control. The words felt heavy. "Why do we need this?" he asked. Brielle's face changed. Not angry, wounded. The kind of wounded face that makes a good man feel guilty before he knows what he did. "So you don't trust me?" she whispered. Cullen hated that question, because men like him were trained by life to apologize quickly. Before he could answer, Maris walked in without knocking, wearing a cream coat and carrying a leather folder. "A husband who loves his wife protects her," Maris said. "A husband who doubts her usually has something to hide." Tinsley followed behind her and placed a pen on the table. "Sign tonight," she said. "It prevents problems." Cullen looked at the pen, then at his wife. Brielle's eyes were wet. He almost signed. His fingers touched the pen. Then his phone rang. Unknown number. Everyone looked at it. Brielle said, "Ignore it." But something in Cullen's chest tightened. He answered. A man's voice spoke low. "Is this Cullen?" "Yes. My name is Orville. I owned your house before you. Listen carefully. Do not react. Do not let anyone know I called." Cullen's blood went cold. Orville continued. "There is a hidden camera inside your bedroom wall. It was part of an old security system. I thought it was dead. Last night, it sent one recording to my backup account." Cullen stared at Brielle. She was watching him too closely. "What recording?" he asked. Orville paused. "Your wife, her mother, her sister, talking about you." Cullen could barely breathe. Orville said one more thing. "Son, do not sign anything." Then the call ended. Brielle stepped closer. Who was that? Cullen looked at the papers, then at the pen. Then he did the hardest thing he had ever done. He smiled. "Spam call," he said. Tinsley narrowed her eyes. Maris watched him like a snake watching grass move. Brielle touched his hand. "So you'll sign?" Cullen picked up the pen. For one terrible second, he let them believe it. Then he set it down. "I'm tired," he said. "Tomorrow." Brielle's smile disappeared so fast he almost missed it. That night, Cullen did not sleep. At 2:13 a.m., he sat in the public library parking lot with Orville's old laptop on his knees. Orville had met him behind a closed diner and handed him the file. "I only watched enough to know you were in danger," the old man said. "After that, I stopped." Cullen opened the video. The screen showed his bedroom. Brielle stood near the dresser. Maris sat on the bed like it already belonged to her. Tinsley held a folder. "He's easy," Tinsley said. "Push guilt. Push marriage. He'll sign." Maris smiled. "Good. The house first. Then the bank accounts. Once the power of attorney activates, we move everything before he understands." Brielle crossed her arms. "What if he refuses?" Tinsley laughed. "Cullen, please. He apologizes when waiters bring him the wrong food. Maris leaned back. Men like him are useful. They're grateful for love. That makes them obedient. Cullen's hands started shaking. Then Brielle said the sentence that killed the last soft part of him. After we get the house, I want him gone. I can't keep pretending I'm proud of him. Silence filled the car. Rain tapped the windshield. Cullen pressed pause. For a moment, he was not angry. He was empty. He remembered every time he had defended Brielle, every bill he had paid, every insult he had swallowed, every night he had believed love meant patience. Then the video continued. Tinsley opened another page. If he fights, we say emotional abuse. Financial control. Maybe threats. Nothing specific. Specific lies can be tested. Maris nodded. And if he gets loud? Tinsley smiled. Even better. Then he looks unstable. Brielle looked straight into the hidden camera without knowing it. I'll cry if I need to. Cullen closed the laptop. He sat in the dark until sunrise. By morning, he looked older. Not weaker. Older in the way a good man ages when trust dies in one night. He drove home. Brielle was in the kitchen, wearing his sweatshirt, making coffee like nothing had happened. About the papers, she said softly. Can we finish tonight? Cullen looked at her face. Beautiful. Calm. Fake. He wanted to scream. He wanted to show her the video and watch her perfect mask break. But revenge born from anger is usually stupid. So he swallowed the fire. He kissed her forehead. Tonight, he said. I'll do it tonight. Brielle smiled. Upstairs, behind the bedroom wall, the hidden camera was still recording. And this time, Cullen knew exactly where the truth was hiding. Part 2. Cullen had always believed that the truth was enough. Now he understood something different. Truth without proof is just another opinion. And people like Brielle, Maris, and Tinsley knew exactly how to turn opinions into weapons. For the next 3 weeks, Cullen played the role they expected. The obedient husband. The tired worker. The man who never asked questions. Every morning, he kissed Brielle goodbye. Every evening, he listened to her talk about the future. A future she was secretly planning to steal. And every day, he collected evidence. The hidden camera continued recording. But that was only the beginning. Cullen contacted Orville again. The old man listened quietly before giving him a name. Go speak with Corwin. Who is Corwin? The man who saved me when my own family tried to destroy me. 2 days later, Cullen drove to a small office above a bookstore. Corwin was not what he expected. No expensive suit. No giant desk. No luxury office. Just an older man with gray hair and sharp eyes. The kind of eyes that noticed everything. After watching the recordings, Corwin leaned back in silence. Then he spoke. Your biggest danger isn't losing the house. Cullen frowned. What do you mean? Corwin slid a notepad across the desk. Look at the timeline. Cullen studied it. Property transfer. Power of attorney. Access to accounts. Potential divorce. False accusations. Suddenly his stomach tightened. They were never after only the house. Corwin nodded. They are building a legal trap. The room became very quiet. If you signed those documents, Corwin continued, they would control your assets. Then they would accuse you of emotional abuse. After that, they would remove you from the house while presenting themselves as victims. Cullen felt sick. Everything fit perfectly. Every conversation. Every tear. Every guilt trip. Every carefully planned argument. It was all preparation. A strategy. Not a marriage. A strategy. That night, Brielle surprised him. She prepared his favorite dinner. She poured wine. She smiled more than usual. Halfway through the meal, she placed the folder on the table again. The same folder. The same documents. The same trap. Cullen, she said softly, don't you think it's time? He forced himself to smile. Maybe next week. For the first time, Brielle looked irritated. Just for a second. But Cullen saw it. The mask slipped. Then her phone vibrated. She glanced at the screen. A message appeared. She turned the phone away quickly. Too late. Cullen had already seen the sender. Tinsley. In one sentence. Stop delaying. He's getting suspicious. Something inside Cullen became ice. Not anger. Not pain. Ice. The next morning, he visited a lawyer recommended by Corwin. Her name was Alara. After reviewing the recordings, bank statements, and documents, she sat quietly for nearly a minute. Then she looked directly at Cullen. You're luckier than you realize. Cullen laughed bitterly. Does this look lucky? It does. She tapped the folder. Most victims discover the fraud after they lose everything. Cullen looked down. Alara continued. You discovered it before signing. For the first time since this nightmare began, he felt a small spark of hope. Over the next month, the plan began. Quietly, carefully. Every account was secured. Every asset was protected. Every legal vulnerability was closed. Brielle knew nothing. Maris knew nothing. Tinsley knew nothing. They believed they were hunting him. In reality, they were walking into a cage. Then something unexpected happened. One evening Cullen returned home early. The house was quiet. Too quiet. He heard voices upstairs. The bedroom door was partially open. Inside were Brielle and a man Cullen had never seen before. A tall man wearing an expensive suit. The moment Brielle noticed Cullen, her face turned pale. The stranger stood immediately. Nobody spoke. For several seconds, the room felt frozen. Finally, Brielle forced a smile. "This is just a client." Cullen looked at her, then at the man, then at the open folder on the bed. The folder containing property documents. The man quickly closed it. Too quickly. Cullen smiled politely. "Nice to meet you." The stranger left. As soon as the front door closed, Brielle exploded. "Why are you acting weird lately?" Cullen blinked. "Weird? You're suspicious. You're distant. You're making me uncomfortable." There it was. The first accusation. The first step. Exactly as planned in the recording. Cullen lowered his eyes. "I'm sorry." Instantly her expression softened. Because that was what she expected. An apology. Submission. Weakness. That night she called her mother. The camera captured everything. Maris sounded annoyed. "We need to finish this soon." Tinsley's voice joined the call. "Then accelerate phase 2. Cullen replayed the recording 5 times. Phase 2. Those 2 words haunted him. What was phase 2? The answer arrived 3 days later. At work, his supervisor called him into the office. Human Resources was waiting. A woman opened a folder. "We received a complaint." Cullen felt his chest tighten. "What complaint?" The woman avoided eye contact. "An anonymous report claims you have violent behavior at home." The room spun. For a moment he could barely hear. Then he remembered the recording. If he gets loud, he looks unstable. Phase 2 had begun. Someone was trying to destroy him before he could defend himself. Someone wanted a record, a history, a paper trail, something they could later use against him. When Cullen walked out of the office, his hands were shaking. Not from fear, from realization. This was bigger than the house, bigger than money. They weren't trying to rob him. They were trying to erase him. That evening he sat across from Corwin. The older man listened carefully. Then he asked one question. "Are you ready?" "Ready for what?" Corwin leaned forward. "The moment where the hunter becomes the prey." Cullen looked at the growing stack of evidence. The recordings, the messages, the documents, the witnesses. Months of lies were finally becoming visible. And for the first time, he realized something. Brielle wasn't the mastermind. Neither was Maris. Neither was Tinsley. Someone else was standing behind all of them. Someone far more powerful. Someone whose name had not appeared once. Yet. And when Cullen finally discovered who that person was, everything changed. Part 3. Cullen barely slept that night. The name kept repeating in his mind. Who was the person behind everything? Who had enough influence to coordinate Brielle, Maris, and Tinsley? The answer arrived the next morning. Not through a recording. Not through a document. Through a mistake. A very expensive mistake. While reviewing bank records with Alara, Cullen noticed a payment. Then another. Then another. Large transfers. Always moving through different companies. Different accounts. Different names. But every trail eventually led to one person. Roderick. A wealthy real estate developer. A respected businessman. A local celebrity. The man who had built half the luxury properties in the county. And Brielle's former fiancé. The room went silent. Alara looked at the screen. Then at Cullen. "Now we know." Cullen felt cold. Everything suddenly made sense. The house. The pressure. The legal documents. The rush. The fake accusations. None of it was random. Roderick wanted the land beneath the house. Years earlier, he had tried to purchase the entire block. Every owner sold. Except one. Orville. And after Orville sold to Cullen, Roderick assumed he could take the property later through Brielle. The marriage itself had become part of the plan. Cullen sat back in his chair. For months, he had believed his wife betrayed him for money. The truth was worse. She had chosen him because he was the target. Not because she loved him. Not because she cared. Because he was useful. That realization hurt more than anything. For several minutes, nobody spoke. Then Corwin broke the silence. "Good." Cullen stared at him. Good. Corwin nodded. Now we know where to strike. Over the next month the trap was completed. Patiently. Legally. Carefully. Every conversation was documented. Every message was preserved. Every financial transfer was traced. Meanwhile, Brielle became increasingly confident. She believed victory was close. She began treating Cullen with open disrespect. One evening she laughed when he mentioned fixing the porch. Why bother? She asked. What do you mean? She smirked. You might not be living here much longer. For a moment she looked shocked she had said it aloud. Then she laughed. Cullen laughed too, as if it were a joke. Inside, he recorded every word. A week later the final meeting arrived. Maris organized a large family gathering. Relatives, friends, business partners, neighbors. More than 50 people. Cullen received a text from Brielle. Be there at 6. We have an announcement. He smiled when he read it, because he already knew exactly what the announcement would be. At 6 o'clock the house was full. People talked, laughed, drank wine. Brielle stood near Roderick. Not close enough to raise suspicion. Close enough for anyone paying attention. At 7, Maris tapped a glass. The room became quiet. She smiled. My daughter has suffered silently for a long time. Cullen looked down, pretending surprise. Maris continued. She has endured emotional abuse. Gasps spread through the room. Several people turned toward Cullen. Brielle lowered her eyes. Perfect performance. A few guests immediately looked disgusted. Others whispered. Exactly as planned. Then Tinsley stood up, holding documents. We are filing legal actions today. The room exploded with conversation. Cullen heard people muttering. Monster. Abuser. Poor Brielle. He stood alone, just as they intended. Then came the final humiliation. Roderick stepped forward, wrapped an arm around Brielle, and said loudly, She won't be alone anymore. The room applauded. Some even smiled. Cullen felt dozens of eyes on him, waiting, expecting, hoping he would explode, because anger would complete the trap. Instead, Cullen smiled. A calm smile. A terrifying smile. And suddenly the room became quiet. Finished? He asked. Maris frowned. What? Are you finished? Nobody answered. Cullen nodded toward the front door. The door opened. 3 people entered. Alara, Corwin, and a county investigator. The room froze. Tinsley's face lost all color. The investigator placed several folders on the table. Then another. Then another. Then another. Evidence. Months of evidence. Recordings. Financial records. Witness statements. Messages. Property schemes. Forgery plans. Everything. Absolute silence filled the room. The investigator opened the first folder. Would anyone like to explain these recordings discussing fraud? Nobody spoke. He opened another. Were these financial transfers? Nothing. Another. Were these property acquisition plans? Maris looked like she could not breathe. Tinsley's hands trembled. Then the hidden camera video began playing on the television. The room watched. Every lie. Every insult. Every conspiracy. Every betrayal. People who had applauded minutes earlier now stared in horror. One woman began crying. Another walked out. A business partner quietly stepped away from Roderick. Then another. Then another. His empire started collapsing before his eyes. The moment the recording ended, nobody defended them. Nobody. Because the truth was undeniable. Brielle looked at Cullen. For the first time. Not confident. Not superior. Terrified. Cullen. He shook his head. No. Tears filled her eyes. I can explain. No. Maris tried next. You're making a mistake. No. Tinsley opened her mouth. No. 3 simple letters. 3 years of pain behind them. The investigator finally stood. We'll continue this at the appropriate offices. Roderick tried to leave. The investigator stopped him. Not yet. The room watched everything. Nobody moved. Nobody helped. Nobody applauded. Hours later the house was empty. The guests were gone. The lies were gone. The masks were gone. Only Cullen remained. Standing on his porch, watching the sunset. Corwin walked beside him. You okay? Cullen thought for a moment, then smiled. Not yet. Corwin nodded. Fair answer. A year later, Tinsley lost her law license. Maris lost most of her clients. Roderick became the subject of multiple investigations. And Brielle? She moved away quietly. The woman who once believed she could take everything from Cullen eventually became someone nobody trusted. As for Cullen, he kept the house, fixed the porch, planted maple trees in the yard. And every autumn, when the leaves turned gold, he remembered something important. The people who tried hardest to break him had accidentally built the man who defeated them, and the house they tried to steal became the monument to their failure. Because sometimes revenge is not destroying your enemies. Sometimes revenge is calmly surviving long enough to watch their own lies destroy them.